Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here again. I've spoken quite a few times, but today I'm going to talk about Blockchain Foundation and a few things that we have going on at the intersection of the market structure legislation. So, as Paul mentioned, I'm Executive Director of Blockchain Foundation. Blockchain Foundation is a 501c3 that focuses on education. We were created at the same time that the Blockchain Association was created in 2018 with the same people. It's created by Kristen Smith, Katie Biber, and Josh Mendelson. But we only stood it up in 2022. So since 2022, Blockchain Foundation has focused on education. So while the industry and the Blockchain Association focus on adoption, we focus on being a bridge to leaders of public institutions, the public institutions that Washington trusts, the ones that actually have the ear of members of Congress. One of the things I want to announce today is that we received a Kellogg grant to focus on CDFIs and MDIs. So CDFIs, think of them similar to credit unions. They're a unique subset of the banking system. And so the Kellogg grant actually provides a pathway to survey CDFIs and MDIs to find out how are they thinking about digital assets, how are they thinking about risks and utility. We're in the field right now with that survey. We've partnered with Prosperity Now, an almost 50-year organization that has focused on economic growth. And so we are in the field to survey not just CDFIs and MDIs, but also the communities around them. As you know, they tend to partner with traditional banks as well as nonprofit organizations. So we're excited to announce the findings this fall. So as this survey that we're doing with Kellogg and Prosperity Now is to build on a report that we did last year. And last year, Blockchain Foundation put out a research report making the case that we should authorize credit unions, CDFIs, and MDIs to offer digital assets because they are the institutions that could also offer risk mitigation services. And that caught the eye of Kellogg, and we talked about doing this. Many of you may know that NCUA has a great team. Kyle Hartman, who a lot of us know, has provided guidance for credit unions over the years, and successfully in the Genius Act and the stablecoin legislation, it included a provision to create a pathway for credit unions to become issuers of stablecoin. And we think we can actually do that for CDFIs and MDIs. So in addition to the survey and the report, Blockchain Foundation provided a comment to the Senate Banking Committee to make the case that there should be a provision in the market structure bill that calls on FDIC, the Fed, and OCC that have jurisdiction over CDFIs and MDIs to actually do a federal study. So the bill would actually call for a federal study and funding to see what is the pathway for these institutions to offer digital assets. We know from the work done with credit unions that would have to be done through partnerships, which is a win-win for DeFi and TradFi, because we've seen credit unions successfully do this through partnerships, and some of you have actually been part of those conversations. So we're excited that there'll be momentum for that provision, and we've been talking to some of the Senate members about the recommendation to see if we can get some champions. As many of you know, that this week the Hispanic Caucus is doing their conference. Next week, the Congressional Black Caucus is doing their conference in DC, and they're hosting quite a few crypto panels. One of the things that the Blockchain Foundation was able to do is partner with the Congressional Black Caucus to actually do a chairs conversation on crypto. So this would not be a panel being hosted during CBC next week. It would be a special roundtable curated with a special group of folks with members to talk about digital assets. So I've been working with Vince, who's the executive director of the Blockchain the Congressional Black Caucus, and so we're finalizing the program now. We'll be focusing on two issues. One is the market structure legislation, but also looking at how do we mitigate risks with innovation. How can we get more Democrats to normalize the conversation of risk, as Paul has articulated that has been done with privacy? I remember when privacy was this obscure conversation. I worked in Congress for Barbara Lee and Betty McCollum and in the Obama administration, and privacy was this conversation where there was either ultra national security or just about sinister people who were doing terrible things. So we've been able to normalize this conversation around privacy. And so during our roundtable next week, in addition to talking about the market structure bill and the provision we've advanced, we'll be talking about how do we normalize the conversations around risk so that they're not weaponized as a yes or no, but more about in the 21st century, we can support innovation while also empowering consumers and households with tools for them to safely access digital finance so that we can actually help to ensure that legislation is not locking people out. And on that note, that's it. Thank you.